I just been watching the news, and I was just amazed that people who are actually working, a couple working, and still having to go to food banks for free or cheap food to keep them going. And some people, even when they're working, still have to claim benefits because their wages are not enough to keep them going. Now, why has this happened? I mean, I'm quite old. My parents got married in 1925 and my father bought a house for £150. You know, things have changed. But my mother never worked after she got married because looking after a house and a family in those days was a full-time job. They had no electricity, they had no gadgets in the kitchen. It was everything was done by hand. Washing day was a full day and baking day was as well. So, you know, things were different. But my dad, he was a joiner, not a fantastic job, but, you know, a job. And he managed to buy a house and he bought about 3 acres of land and had a sort of small holding, kept poultry. And the family, the 4 of us, all brought up, all got jobs. So why have things changed? I got married in 1963 and I know things were different then because I bought a house for £3,200, a detached bungalow as it happened. But my salary was £800 a year. So I know things were different and houses are much more expensive now. And I think probably one of the main problems is the cost of housing. We used to have a lot of cheap council houses, subsidised council houses for poorer people. And then they were sold off, I think, in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, I'm not sure when. And there's a lack of cheap housing now. A lot of the houses are owned by private owners, private landlords. Although there's a lot of legislation, I think houses are expensive. I know somebody who's paying, I think, £1,800 a month for a house. Not much left after your salary after that's gone out. So we've got housing costs, I think, are a problem. We've got too many people for too few houses because we don't really like building new houses on new land, which of course is good. People's attitudes, perhaps people want so much out of life. They want the best car, the best television, the best house, the best garden, whatever. I don't know. It doesn't apply to everybody, but I think there is quite a lot of that about. And the other thing is that there are no sort of basic old-fashioned type factory jobs that there used to be. I remember when I moved to Luton and Vauxhall Motors were in full production, and they employed directly and indirectly about sort of over 20,000 people. I mean, you know, the whole town depended on it, and other factories as well. So there are not those sort of basic factory jobs, and where there are factory jobs, it's mainly automation. You're mainly looking after a machine. I think there are also attitudes towards jobs. I don't think people want to do ordinary sort of basic jobs, which is why I think we have so many people, or had, until we had that Brexit fiasco. We used to have people coming in doing sort of seasonal jobs on farms, picking fruit, people working on building sites, doing labouring jobs, jobs other people did, which our own people didn't want to do or couldn't do, or for whatever reason. So I don't know what the problem is. It's mainly housing, it might be attitudes. I think also we've got this idea now that if you want to get on in life, you've got to go to university. And I think, you know, that costs an awful lot to go to university these days. I mean, one time it used to be free. But, so I think we've got this sort of, yeah, let's get a degree and then we'll get a good job. And it doesn't always happen, does it? I wonder how many graduates are now working in shops and struggling to get a job. Yeah, it's difficult. Perhaps we ought to get back to the old day where if you wanted a professional qualification, you worked for a company and studied and did part-time courses and then you passed your exams later on. And you could be earning while you were doing it. Oh well, perhaps I've nutted on, perhaps I'm getting too old for all this lot. I think the one redeeming thing is that there are a lot of new jobs around, aren't there? When you look at the television, how many channels are there? How many broadcasters? How many news people? There's all those jobs in media, jobs in IT, and there are jobs that people invent. I mean, I know somebody who his full-time job is walking other people's dogs. I don't know what my dad would have made him like that. What on earth do you want to get a dog if you have to pay for somebody? Oh well, that's enough, I think. We'll leave it at that, and then perhaps you can think about what it's all about.